Hi guys. So I wanted to share a story with you today from September when I was at the Safe Haven. There was about 50 children in front of me as I stood in this tent. We were taking shelter from the oppressive sun. And I asked a simple question. What do you want to be when you grow up? And across the room, these 25 girls, 25 boys, there was complete silence and awkward fidgeting. Because it dawned on me at that moment that no one had asked them that question before, and they had never given themselves the permission to dream in this way. Now, of course, I was standing in the refugee camps between Myanmar and Bangladesh. There's about 700,000 people that fled into this region. 60% of them are children, and they've witnessed the horrors of war. I know the stories that these children have gone through because we've been working with them over the last year. I know how these kids at the Safe Haven, how their fathers have been hacked to death or shot, how their mothers were gang raped in front of them, how their brothers and sisters were locked inside burning huts as they heard the screams of their brothers and sisters as they ran away, and as they themselves ran away, these surviving children. Fleeing across the border for days without food, sometimes without water, crossing the water into Bangladesh where they then were vulnerable to child trafficking, etc. So they bear the emotional scars and the physical scars. They dream these dreams almost every night, and they have drawn out in vivid details the horrors that they have seen, so we know exactly what they have gone through. And so we cannot let this trauma define them. They are so much more than their past. They are their future. So in this moment, I ask them another question. Go ahead and draw out what you want to be. Imagine that there were no limits, that you could be whatever you wanted to be. Dream as big as you want to be. Just go ahead and draw it out. And so smiles then began to emerge on their faces. They began to reach for their crayons, and across the pages they began to dream with their hands. And then one by one they began to stand up. And so we had one girl raise up and she said, "I want to be a teacher." And she held up her picture. Then we had another girl next to her stand up and say, "I want to be a doctor." One of the boys said, "I want to be like Messi, a soccer player." Another one stood up and said, "I want to be a pilot," and held up his colorful image of these planes, beautifully drawn. And then finally, in the back of the room, we had one really strong girl stand up and say, "I want to be president." And of course, our hearts just swelled with so much emotion when we saw this happening. And we saw what is possible when these children are allowed to dream in this way. And in this moment, I realized that this generation of children who stood before me had everything within themselves to dream, to hope, and to achieve, and that all they needed was for us to show up for them and to create the loving, healing, supportive environments in which they can rise and thrive into their full potential. This hope is what they need in order to overcome their cycle of violence, poverty, and instability that they're currently used to. And so this is what we're trying to do with No Limit Generation. We're going to accomplish this by providing the critical tools to the caregivers who work with these children to understand what these children are going through, and then give them the practical advice to work with these children, to heal these children, to support these children, and so that they can rise and thrive into their full potential. And so I ask you, today I'm kicking off a campaign so that we can raise some funds to bring out these initial tools to these caregivers at the refugee camps. We have 4 humanitarian organizations that we partnered with that are willing to use these tools, and we've talked to some amazing child well-being experts, and we have their guidance points on video that we're putting on a digital platform that these caregivers can now have access to, so they can directly in the field, when they're encountering an issue, whether it's related to child protection, child health, child well-being, they can look it up in this digital platform, in these engaging videos, and know exactly how to take care of these children. So we owe it to these children to have this future. So let's empower these caregivers with the tools that they need so that they can have these loving, healing, supportive experiences with these children. So thank you so much. Please consider donating to our Christmas campaign. The link is right here to GoFundMe, where you can make your tax-deductible donations, and I'm very grateful that you can join us in this mission together and create these success stories. Thank you.